Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. So it is the Sunday after Thanksgiving, and my son Matthias and I had some time here today. So we are going to do another episode of our Blind Guardian analysis stream. So this is my silly son Matthias. And I'm, of course, Corey Olsen, the Tolkien Professor, and we...
Oh, hi, I don't know who you
Well, thank you very much. It's good to meet you. And so last episode, this is our second episode in this series, discussing the album, doing a close reading of the Blind Guardian lyrics and their adaptation of the Silmarillion, which is really fun. So last time we did mostly we did Into the Storm last time.
Mostly.
Pretty much. Into the Storm.
Most of the time we were discussing the chorus.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and now we probably figured it out.
Well, yeah, possibly figured it out. So here's the thing. The biggest confusion that we had, which we were just kind of asking for help with because we didn't understand it at all, is that that one line in the chorus, which the last line in the chorus. So we're following the will of the One through the dark age and into the storm.
And we're
following the will of the One through the dark age and into the storm, and then it says something. And
it says.
Well, oh yeah. Exactly
it sounds like.
Yeah. Exactly. So we couldn't understand what that was, and all of the online lyrics say "Lord, I mean," and we were totally convinced that obviously cannot be correct, but we couldn't figure it out. So we had a couple really good comments on this. I had an interesting discussion last week with somebody on Twitter who is making some interesting suggestions, but I think it's been solved by Tungle on our discussion board. He posted on this actually on the Exploring the Lord of the Rings discussion board, and I think he's got it. Hey, look, Matthias, your friend Matthias is here.
Hello.
Your friend who shares your name over in Sweden, right, Matthias? You're in Sweden, I think. Anyway, yeah. So Tungle had suggested, and let's move forward to the lyrics, that the words are actually "blood on me," referring to Morgoth's acknowledgement of his guiltiness and the fact that he just killed Finwë. And in particular, then Tungle linked us to a recording of a live performance of this song by Blind Guardian in concert, where you can hear those lyrics much more clearly. And I am completely convinced after watching the live recording that blood is definitely the first word you just said, that it's gone forevermore. The light, the trees are gone and they can't be brought back. And of course, if he doesn't give the Silmarils, then the trees will be gone forevermore, and the light of the trees will be gone forevermore if he doesn't give the Silmarils to be broken. But of course, if he does give the Silmarils, then the light of the Silmarils will be gone forevermore. And so the fact that he sort of equates this identity with Melkor with them taking away the light, and the way that he characterizes restoring the light of the trees so that they would be healed and all would be well again as the loss of the light forevermore, because to him the Silmarils are now even more important than the trees, and the taking of the Silmarils would be the confirmation of all of his horrible suspicions. There's so much going on in that verse. It's really fascinating, and that's why we didn't get past it at the end of our last episode. Okay.
Yeah, you spent 15 minutes talking about it.
Yeah, kind of did. So that's our summary of where we are at the beginning, just to sort of refresh your memories there. Now let's look at the next verse. Let's go back just a tiny bit there. A couple seconds. All right. All right. Like sorrowful seagulls they sang. We're lost in the deep shades the misty cloud brought. Okay. Like sorrowful seagulls they sang. That's clearly a reference to the Teleri. As of course, the Silmarillion, you'll remember, says that when the trees failed, right, and the darkness fell, the Teleri weren't there. They were in their city off by the coast. But you could hear from the shores the wailing of the Teleri, right? So it's comparing the sorrowful songs of the Teleri as they're singing in the sudden darkness to seagulls. So the reference to seagulls makes it clear that we're talking about the Teleri here, right? And that we're lost in the deep shades the misty cloud brought. And then that background, again, the background, a wailing when beauty was gone, come take a look at the sky. So we have, again, the mourning of the Teleri here, right? I'm not sure what to do with come take a look at the sky. I want to hear that again. Where are we here? What I want is, I'm looking at the wrong song. Okay, 45. I'm about here. Yeah. Come take a look at the sky kind of segues into monstrous it covered the shore, right? A wailing when beauty was gone. So I think the issue there, the come take a look at the sky is, these first few lines are giving us the moving of the cloud. Remember how Ungoliant has sucked the trees dry, right? And she spits out the unlight, right? This cloud of darkness that can be felt, and it covers over things, and they leave, right? Ungoliant and Melkor run away. So I think what we're getting here is the misty cloud. That seems like an understatement, but I think the misty cloud is referring to the cloud of Ungoliant, right? Because the misty cloud brought deep shades, lost in the misty shades, in the deep shades, the misty clouds brought, right? And then the background singers say, a wailing when beauty was gone. So they're, again, the sorrowful seagulls, right? The Teleri are singing when beauty is gone. Come take a look at the sky. Talking about how the dark cloud is overwhelming even the sky, right? And engulfing the stars. Because that segues to monstrous it covered the shore, fearful into the unknown. Right, fearful into the unknown is a really cool line. The lyrics here put that still in quotation marks. I'm not sure any of this is in quotation marks, really. I'm not convinced.
Wait, how come there's only one piece of quotation marks?
No, the other one is way up here. See, they're kind of claiming that this is, but I'm not convinced of this. Notice they've added the we're here again. Matthias and I have noticed that whoever typed up these lyrics was very
assumptuous.
Very assumptuous. Yes, they add. It says usually making up words runs in the family. They do a lot of extrapolating into sentences and things, which I very often disagree with. And here I think is one. If we add we're, the first person there, then it makes it a quotation, but I'm not sure it is. Like sorrowful seagulls, they sang lost in the deep shades. I think that just describes, or like it's like an adverbial clause describing how they sang, where they sang. They sang lost in the deep shades the misty cloud brought. Monstrous it covered the shore, fearful into the unknown, quietly it crept in. So I don't think any of that is a quotation. I think that's wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, sorry. So, fearful into the unknown. And what I really like about that line is it works in a couple different ways, right? Who's fearful? The Teleri are fearful, right? Because the light has just gone out and the monstrous cloud has covered the shore, right?
Fearful into the unknown. That could also mean like it could even mean like Morgoth.
Exactly. Yeah, that's just what I think too, because he's fearful. Remember, like as soon as they take out the trees, he's like, quick, let's get out before the Valar come and catch us, right? Because Tolkien and Orome are like right after them, right on his heels, right? So yeah, like they've brought fear, but they are themselves fearful as they bring fear. And the unknown, like fearful into the unknown makes it sound like a great sort of, well, there are a couple different ways to take that, right? On the one hand, the Teleri are again with the whole context of the Teleri and the Teleri seem to be being brought forward as like a symbol of like the experience of the elves here, right? They're the ones the darkness has overcome them, right? Yeah. And so they're fearful because it's dark, and they're going into the unknown like they don't know what's going to happen next, right? And, you know what has happened now is the light and glory of Valinor lost forever, but of course Melkor and Ungoliant are also going into the unknown, right? And doing so fearfully. Quietly it crept in new horror. Insanity reigned and spilled the first blood when the old king was slain. So we get a clear narrative hook there, right? The death of Finwë, Finwë the king at Formenos, which is we know where Morgoth goes straight from Valmar, where he destroyed the.
I think that although quietly crept in new horror is an odd sentence, I think it means like new horror quietly crept in.
Yeah, I wonder. Quietly it crept in new horror. Yeah, so new horror could be the subject.
It's not proper English,
right?
But it could mean new horror.
Yes. Yeah, that kind of reversal.
Because like generally, if it was actual English, it would mean the unknown.
True. Yeah, because it's unclear what it refers to. It has no antecedent. Antecedent is the word for the noun that the pronoun refers to.
Yeah, that would be the unknown. But
it would be, technically. You're right about that. But, though actually, technically, we could say that the it here, in this line, is the same it as monstrous it covered the shore, which would be, like, the cloud, right? Mm-hmm. The other possible reading of that, so it is possible that new horror could be the subject. Quietly it crept in. New horror. Insanity, like, you know, so it's like, quietly it crept in. What crept in? New horror, right?
Yeah.
But it could also be, that could also be a prepositional phrase. Like, quietly it crept in new horror. Like, how did it creep? It crept in new horror, right? So, like, in the midst of new horror, it crept. Would be the other way to read that, right? Either one of them kind of works. I kind of like them both, actually.
Insanity
reigned. And spilled the first blood. Now, and that's really cool. And spilled the first blood when the old king was slain. Now,
so that means
what spilled the first blood?
Insanity spilled the
exactly.
First blood.
That's the cool thing, right? Now, insanity reigned.
Insanity didn't kill it, though.
Well, no, I mean, it did. Well, who killed who spilled the first blood?
Melkor?
Yes, Melkor. And therefore, what is the song suggesting about Melkor?
That he's insane.
That is insane. Oh, because insanity reigned sounds like it's referring to like the chaos after the darkening, right? Yeah. Like insanity reigned among the elves in the new horror and everything, right? So like, amidst the new horror,
the thing that the cloud quietly crept.
The crowd is quietly creeping through new horror. Yeah. But anyway, and it's insane, right? So insanity is reigning amidst the new horror, or maybe new horror is creeping in, and that's why insanity is reigning, right? But it's
wait, insanity is raining from the sky?
No, raining with a G.
Oh.
So it spilled the first blood, which means it's Melkor, right? So we get that shift. It sounds like it's the elves, right, among whom insanity is reigning, and then it's spilling the first blood, which means it's Melkor, right? So that shift of how the identity, so insanity reigned now in retrospect has its meaning changed. Right? It sounds like insanity is reigning, meaning like there's a whole lot of insanity going on. There's a lot of chaos and confusion and craziness among the elves. But no, Melkor is insanity, right? And he is reigning.
Wait, are we playing rock, paper, scissors?
Yeah, exactly. Making fun of my gesticulations. Okay. And now to the chorus.
I think it is like quietly it crept inside new horror.
I noticed there's another thing wrong here. It's missing an important. It's left out a word. Quietly, it crept in. It clearly says. He clearly says it both times. Quietly, it crept in.
Quietly crept in.
No. There's an it there. Listen to it again. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong verse. Where is it? 115. Okay.
If they're going to assume there are extra words or assume that there are no extra words. In fact, less words.
Exactly.
They're so,
inconsistent. It's true. It's true. But anyway, you notice the significance of that, right?
Yeah.
What word did they leave out? It. And remember, that's the important it. It's the same it.
Nightfall.
It's the same it from the last verse. Right? Monstrous, it covered the shore. Quietly, it crept in. Remember, we had this whole big, what is the it?
Yeah.
Right? And I think the chorus gives us the answer. What's the it? Nightfall.
Yeah.
Nightfall is the it. Right? And you can notice by the repetition, quietly, it crept in. Right?
I think it is new horror quietly crept in.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So, which means that the nightfall is if we do have what crept in quietly, new horror, right?
Although
if that's the way to read that
on monstrous that covered the shore,
yeah,
is the cloud.
But the cloud is nightfall.
It's also nightfall.
Exactly, it's the same thing, right? And it's the cloud, it's nightfall. It's new horror. All these things are the same concept, right? All these, it's all the same it. Okay.
Immortal land lies down in agony.
Immortal land lies down in agony. What a fascinating line that is.
Immortal land is Valinor.
Yes, the immortal land is Valinor. That's the one thing that's super clear, right? Lies down in agony. Now remember, the last line of the last verse before this said, "When the old king was slain," right? So Finwë is the one who's literally lying down in agony, right? Mm-hmm. Like having been stabbed. So we have a sort of a parallel between the life of the immortal land in Valinor and Finwë's life, right? Which is really cool, right? So they're talking. So the death of Finwë is being used as like a symbol of like the life of peace that they've had in the immortal land. But the mere fact that they're saying like the whole immortal land is lying down in agony makes it like completely passive, you know? But the other thing that fascinates me about this chorus is quietly crept in, because that's a repetition, right? Yep. We've seen the quietly crept in before with the new horror line, and changed us all, right? Yeah. And that's the cool thing, because of course a lot is changed at the time of the darkening, right?
Like before, they were peaceful, no fights, no fights allowed. But
exactly.
Now, fighting is their favorite thing ever.
Well, with Fëanor is his favorite thing ever now, right?
Well, exactly. It was always his favorite thing ever.
Well, he's not done it yet, though. Okay, but the important thing is they are changed. It's not the land that's changed, right? It's not like, and now everything is, it would make sense, and it would be perfectly natural for them to say Nightfall quietly crept in and changed everything, right? Mm-hmm. But it's not changed everything. The emphasis is not on the changing of things or on the changing of the world, it's on changing of them, right? And changed us all. So the elves and the Valar, they're the ones who have been changed by the Nightfall, which of course seems to be referring especially, of course, to Fëanor and to the Noldor, and to Fëanor's perception that everybody else is different, right? So cool. All right.
Next.
Now we're going to return to Fëanor.
After the close-up.
Okay, we'll get back to the chorus again. This verse is really complex, especially in the middle there, where we get a bunch of them speaking at the same time, right? Mm-hmm. The first part of it is the simplest part, right? Because the first part of it, we get...
It's Fëanor just, like...
Right.
That's Fëanor talking to the rest of the elves.
Exactly. We just get right to Fëanor's speech in Tirion, right? When he comes back to Tirion and he says, hey, we should leave, right? Yeah. This is his big speech by torchlight. How long shall we mourn in the dark? The bliss and the beauty will not return.
He's like, hey, people, stop being sorry for yourself. Come on, let's go.
That's right. We should go and do something, right? Mm-hmm. Now remember how this contrasts with immortal land lies down in agony, right? Mm-hmm. What's Fëanor saying? I'm not going to lie down, right? I'm going to get up and do something. Mm-hmm. Unlike you people, right? He's suggesting to the Valar, right? So he's going to get up and do something. So, okay. How long shall we mourn in the dark? The bliss and the beauty will not return. Say farewell to sadness and grief, though long and hard the road may be. Okay, so that's all paraphrase of his speech to the Noldor in Tirion. And then this is where it gets interesting. But even in silence, I heard the words. Who's An I? Oath we shall swear. That's exactly the question. Who's I? An oath we shall swear by the name of the One. Until the world's end, it can't be broken. Now, that's obviously the oath of Fëanor, right, that is being referred to here. But an oath we shall swear by the name of the One, you would think that would be Fëanor speaking, right? Mm-hmm. If it's Fëanor's words that the eye is hearing, then who's the eye?
It's not Fëanor.
But then again...
Because he's saying it.
Right, but nobody's saying it. Because he's hearing the words in silence. And then the next line, just wondering how I can still hear these voices inside. And then the background singers say, the doom of the Noldor drew near.
I think I might be referring to Melkor.
You think so?
Yeah.
I is very often Melkor on this album. But Melkor, this is one of the songs in which Melkor doesn't really feature, I don't think. I wouldn't have thought. Because he's run off. Right? Remember, this happens after Into the Storm gives us the quarrel between Ungoliant and Melkor. Mm-hmm. Right? The conflict between Ungoliant and Melkor. So that suggests that this song comes after it. But actually it doesn't make sense because some of the other, I know what you want, you will take it away from me, take it and I know for sure. That happens before the quarrel anyway, so... So chronology doesn't necessarily fit, but hang on. So let's just listen to that again.
Of course chronology doesn't fit. It's the Wall of Wrath. It's the stone.
Well, right. Yeah, but with that exception, the chronology generally fits. Let's see. Let's just go back to the beginning of the verse. And I want to pay special attention to the interleaving voices there.
Those two lines, just wondering how I can still hear the voices inside. Those words are between until the world's end and it can't be broken.
Yes.
And it's not until the world's end, it's till the world's end.
Till the world's end, yes, you're right. I agree. The oath, you would think, An oath we shall swear by the name of the one until the world's end. It can't be broken. That's really important, right? That's the oath of Fëanor. So you'd think if the oath of Fëanor being pronounced, it would be pronounced, right? But you're right. Not only is it in the background, it gets interrupted, right? Just wondering how I can still hear these voices inside goes over the second. You can barely hear until the world's end. It can't be broken, right? I think that it's the voices inside saying the oath, because it's saying it in silence. I think the I is Fëanor.
Really?
I think the I is Fëanor, and he's hearing the voices inside, and they're saying the oath, or they're foreshadowing the oath. This is not the oath actually being taken. This is the idea of the oath coming to him, like that he should swear this oath. Even in silence, I heard the words, and what he hears is like an echo of the oath.
I can
that comes before the oath,
but it implies that if that's true, then he's been hearing those voices for a long time.
Yes.
He can still hear those voices inside.
Yes. Insanity is totally reigning. Yes, exactly. It does suggest that Fëanor is hearing voices and has heard them for a long time. Absolutely. The doom of the Noldor drew near. And against the background singer saying, the doom of the Noldor drew near. Right? So this is like a narrative commentary, it would seem. Mm-hmm. Unless he's hearing that too in his head. Right? We don't even know. But remember now...
Well, it's clearly like some kind of narrative thing, because he wouldn't hear that. He would hear like, the doom of the Noldor draws near.
True.
Or something.
True. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, drew near, that's implying that it already happened.
Exactly, which would mean it would be from the point of view of, like, the storyteller. Mm-hmm. Right. But wait a second, I just realized something. Huh. Of course he's saying he can still hear the voices inside. We heard him. He's already heard the voices inside earlier in this song.
Oh, yeah, see, he's already planning what he's going to say.
They blinded us all, right? Save me your speeches, I know. They blinded us all. That's the voices in his head. Mm-hmm. Right? And where do the voices in his head come from? Who's talking in his head?
Himself.
Well, that's a good theory with Fëanor. But I think it's like himself, but it's these are the words of Morgoth, I think. Mm-hmm. I think the implication, I think what they're trying to capture here, in the Silmarillion, remember we're told that although Fëanor, when he gave his speech at Tirion, and he spoke against Morgoth and declared eternal enmity against Morgoth, and yet the words that he said were, most of the things that he said were the things that had been said by Morgoth, like he was speaking Morgoth's words. So they seem to be kind of literalizing that, like he's actually hearing voices in his head. But notice the implication there is that the oath itself, because the oath of Fëanor certainly is very evil, like its consequences are completely destructive. There is no good thing about the oath of Fëanor in its results. And so they seem to be implying that even the taking of the oath itself, even the very words of the oath itself, the very terms of the oath itself are kind of planted in his head by Morgoth. I think that's what they're implying there. Mm-hmm. But then when, of course, the tone shifts and we get the words of a banished king, I swear revenge, now he's actually speaking, right? This other stuff wasn't, the rest of the stuff is in his head, right? An oath we shall swear by the name of the one, just wondering how I can still hear these voices inside. That's in his head. The doom of the Noldor drew near would be a kind of a narrative commentary on it, right? Mm-hmm. And then
on the next
transition
line,
to like what is actually being said.
Is the elves.
Yes. Because we have his statement, I swear revenge, and then the effect on the rest of the Noldor, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I wanted to change this. So filled with anger, I want to change this to inflamed, which would have the advantage of being an actual word.
But it is inflamed.
It does sound like that. But here's what I'm debating, Matthias. I think filled with anger, what if it's a flame in our hearts instead of aflamed our hearts?
away from the fact that it's a word that's not a word, okay?
I think you're right. Okay, fine. Aflamed our hearts. Because having it be a verb makes sense anyway, because he is inflaming, or aflaming, if you like, their hearts, right?
It's aflaming.
I think you're right. You're right. I don't want it to be, but it is. Okay. And then they screamed for revenge. But notice how it shifts. Well, no, it doesn't shift. It's our here, too,
It doesn't shift.
It's in the first person, right? But it's shifted from the I to the we, right? It's actually a really interesting shift in perspective. We were in the first person singular, right? I heard the words. I can still hear the voices. Then we shift into the third person for 2 lines, right? The doom of the null. Do you know about persons? Have you guys talked about that in school yet?
Kind of.
It's like how
First person is like when it's told by like the person who the story's about.
Yes.
Third person is like told by a narrator.
That's right.
And second person is really rare, but I can't remember what it is.
It's where you use you. So like a second person story would be, first you get up, then you go downstairs. That's telling a story in the second person, as if it's happening to the reader. It's not unknown, but it's unusual, very unusual. So when you're thinking about pronouns, therefore, I and we are first person pronouns, right? From the pronouns you would use when you're talking from your own perspective. You are second person pronouns, you singular and you plural, and then he, she, it, or they are third person, right? So it's in the first person singular, I. Then it shifts to the third person. The doom of the Noldor drew near. The words of a banished king, right? Notice that's not. We don't go back to Fëanor's eye. It pans out to like show it from the outside, right? We see what's going on inside Fëanor's head, right? Him thinking about the voices and him thinking about the oath. Then we see it from the outside. The words of a banished king. I swear revenge, and then it shifts again from the third person to the first person plural. Now it's in the point of view of the rest of the Noldor. Filled with anger, aflamed our hearts, full of hate, full of pride, we scream for revenge.
That means their hearts are full of hate and full of pride.
Yes, exactly. Because they've been aflamed with anger.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's what being aflamed looks like, I guess. Being full of pride and full of hate. And they screamed for revenge. Were you confused by the same thing I was?
Not really.
All right. I'm going back. Hang on now. I want to hear that verse again.
Which one?
This one. From Vala he is... Right. Sorry, that's not the right one. Yeah, I want to go back a little further. Okay.
So those two lines don't exist.
Well,
and
that's
the cell doesn't
that's
exist.
what. No, it does exist. It's being sung in the background.
What, by like people who mute?
No. Listen.
But there's no cell.
See, listen. You hear it? I went back too far. You freely shall depart. It's really hard to hear because it's being sung at exactly the same time. Just as Vala he is, that's what you said, but freely you came and you freely shall depart is happening. And in particular, you freely shall depart is being overlaid exactly over, then your oath's been sworn in vain. Which is really cool, actually. I love the juxtaposition.
I think that is the Vala.
Yes, exactly. So this whole verse is being spoken by... Remember, there's a messenger who comes. So Fëanor gives his speech, right? And as they're leaving, a messenger comes from the Valar and says they can go if they want to, but it's a really bad idea. And he banishes Fëanor.
Yeah, Vala, he is. That's what you said.
Meaning Melkor. So, because remember, they're warning him. They're like,
Like you said that he.
You said the. So remember, Fëanor had said he is one of the Valar, right? He's one of you guys, right? And so, and he means it as an accusation, right? He's saying to the Valar, like, so you're no better than Melkor, like he's one of you, and he probably takes after you, right? You're jerks just like he is what he means when he says that, right? And so the messenger comes back and says, you've said he's a Valar, right? And if that's true, then you've sworn your oath in vain. Because there's nothing you can do. If he's a Valar, then there's no way you can defeat him. You're just an elf, right? And he's a Valar. So you're an elf and he's a god. You can't defeat him, right?
But freely came and
you freely shall depart. Yeah, so like they're saying, we're not going to forbid you to leave, right? We invited you to come. You came freely, and we're going to let you go. But I love how those two things are combined, right? Vala he is, that's what you said. Then your oath's been sworn in vain. So to have them be essentially saying your oath's been sworn in vain and you freely shall depart at the same time, right? To say like what a subtle job that does of emphasizing you can depart, but it's a horrible idea. Like you can do it, but it's a horrible idea for you to depart, right? And then after those things come back together, right? So never trust the northern winds, never turn your back on friends. They are warning them, they're foreshadowing the betrayal that's going to come up in the north, right? Yeah. At the burning of the ships. I'm heir of the High Lord, says Fëanor. You better not trust him. Speaking against Fëanor. Now they don't do that in the book, right? They don't say and I'm not sure. See, they put this in quotation marks. I'm not sure. I'm not convinced of that either, because the messenger from the Valar does not say you better not trust Fëanor, right? I'm kind of thinking you better not trust him is in the same kind of voice as the doom of the Noldor drew near, in the sense that it's just like a sort of a commentary on the story. Right.
Or you better not trust him could be like the Valar.
It could be, but they don't say that. And
Because heir of the High Lord is probably Fëanor.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, I'm the heir of the, I'm heir of the High Lord is
Because the High
clearly
Lord is
Finwë, who was killed. Yeah, exactly. That's definitely Fëanor. The enemy of mine, isn't he of your kind, right? So that's the, like, isn't he just like you, right? That's the insult that he's turning back against the Valar. So do you notice how they reverse it in the song? Right? Vala he is, that's what you said, then your oath's been sworn in vain. The enemy of mine, isn't he of your kind? And finally, you may follow me. And that's one of the really powerful lines in the Silmarillion, right? Where he says to the Valar, in the end, you may follow me, right? Like, I'm going to lead the way and do what the Valar are not doing. Because remember that last line of the chorus, right? Immortal land lies down in agony, right? Again, so lies down in agony in the sense that, like, it's been knocked down and killed like Finwë, but also in the sense of it's lying down and doing nothing, right? And that meaning, that that possible meaning of that line becomes clearer and clearer the more Fëanor talks, right? That's clearly what he's thinking. Yes, the mortal land is in agony, but it's just lying down and he's not going to lie down anymore. In the end, finally, you may follow me.
And then he said farewell to the Valar.
Yes, then he's saying farewell to the Valar, which, again, that's actually a quote. He says farewell. That's how he ends his speech to the messenger. But then we get the he said again, right? Back to the third person. It's not just Fëanor speaking in first person. Farewell, he said, right? Back to the sort of the storyteller's perspective. Which is why I wonder if you better not trust him is sort of a commentary. Right. A sort of foreshadowing and commentary by the storyteller, because no one's voice, the message of the Valar doesn't say that. The Noldor certainly aren't going to say that, right? It's almost like the storyteller kind of bursting in there and saying, you better not trust him.
This would be so much easier to figure out. Like, I would have it figured out if like these two lines were all one quotation.
Right.
Oh, I'm that would be Fëanor saying that, like, you shouldn't trust the leader of the Valar.
Oh, yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah. Let's go back. If it's Fëanor saying you better not trust him. Oh, of course. Oh, Matthias, I think you have it there. Hang on a second. Let's go back there. Let's hear that. Yeah. See, it's a different voice, right? I'm the heir of the High Lord is the main singer, and then the background singers all shout, you better not trust him, which makes it sound like it's... But it does work. It would work really well.
Yeah. Maybe it's like...
Well, remember the issue that we had when we were the first time I was telling Matthias about the lyrics of this song. Matthias's first comment was, well, wait a second. So shouldn't the album be called Nightfall in Valinor then? If the Nightfall happens in Valinor, did they get it wrong? It was like, did they title their album wrong? Shouldn't it be Nightfall in Valinor instead of Nightfall in Middle-earth? Because the Nightfall doesn't happen in Middle-earth, it happens in Valinor, right? Which is, of course, a very sensible thing to say. But, of course, I think that the album title refers to the broader story. Of course, we're going to get lots of tragedy that's going to be happening in Middle-earth, and so they will be, through the title, they're taking this concept of Nightfall, which we know this is important, right? Because it's in the title of the album. So they're taking this Nightfall concept and they're extending it out over history and using the Nightfall as a metaphor for the suffering, right? And like everything falling into shadow that's going to be happening over in Middle-earth. Which is why I wonder if the it in Back to Where It All Began might be broader in that sense. Because, of course, where they're going to go to, in a sense, they're going to be bringing the Nightfall to Middle-earth. Melkor is bringing the Nightfall to Middle-earth, but they also, in the Oath of through the Oath of Fëanor and everything, they are also bringing the Nightfall to Middle-earth. Back to Middle-earth.
I guess they're talking about, like, back to where the planet began, like if the Valar made Middle-earth first.
Right. Well, I mean, the Valar were over there too originally, so I mean, there is a sense in which everything began in Middle-earth.
That would be possible.
Yeah, there's certainly there's like an infinite possible.
There are a lot of things that began in Middle-earth.
It's certainly true. Really, everything did. Okay. All right. So, hey, we're gonna move on to the next song. We're not gonna have time to start the Curse of Fëanor, though. There's no way we're gonna have time for the Curse of Fëanor.
Can we start it?
Maybe we can. Well, let's see. But before we get to the Curse of Fëanor, which is both of us, is the Curse of Fëanor your favorite song? Curse of Fëanor is my favorite song. We both really like the Curse of Fëanor. The Curse of Fëanor is the first song I played for Matthias on this album. And what kind of sparked his interest in hearing the rest of the album and then talking about the Silmarillion. Anyway, but before we get to the Curse of Fëanor song...
no, I really like Mirror Mirror.
You like, yeah, okay. All right. Well, anyway, we get another one of those... another one of these separate tracks in between. This one is called The Minstrel. And...
So, yeah, this is definitely not chronologically correct.
Well, see, I don't know. I don't understand this. So, for all of you who are listening live, I need your help. I need your help understanding this because I don't get this. So, right after Nightfall here, so we see where we are in the story. The emphasis in this song, really complex, really fascinating song, talking about the darkening, both the darkening of Valinor and the darkening of Fëanor's heart and all of these things. And we're coming to a song that's called the Curse of Fëanor. Which is going to be sort of Fëanor's perspective on leaving Middle-earth and on the burning of the ships as well. And then in between, we get this short track called The Minstrel.
So lost and still in front of the crowd, excited faces, what will be next? I still don't have a clue. I still don't have a clue.
All right, so not having a clue is kind of the theme of this song, which is good because I don't have a clue either. So I'm really in keeping with the theme of this song.
So this is completely in first person.
Yes,
but
exactly.
It isn't giving who it is.
It's got to be the minstrel singing, right? The eye has to...
But who is the minstrel?
Okay, well, there's only really one candidate, which is Maglor, the son of Fëanor. Maglor, the son of Fëanor, is a singer, right? He's a minstrel. And there are only two really famous. There are only two really famous singers, the two most famous of the singers, and that's Maglor and Daeron the minstrel, who is with Luthien in Doriath. But we're not there yet.
I think
it's got to be Maglor. It's got to be Maglor
when he's taking the oath.
Quite possibly. The reference to the crowd, I mean, we just left the crowd of the Noldor at Tirion, right? So presumably this would be a commentary on that. Oh, by the way, there was a third. When Tolkien was first writing, in his first drafts of the Silmarillion, there were three famous minstrels. There was Maglor and Daeron, and guess what the third one was named? Tinfang Warble.
Tinfang Warble?
Tinfang Warble.
Was it a bird with steel fangs?
Yeah. Tinfang Warble.
Tinfang Warble?
Yes. He wrote a poem about Tinfang Warble.
What?
It starts off like this. It goes, oh the hoot, how I trillop on my flute, how he trillops on his flute, oh the flute of Tinfang Warble.
Wait, So
You think I'm making this up? I am not making this up.
No, it's like it's called steel tooth wobble, steel tooth bird.
Yeah, tin fang warble. That's it. Anyway, okay. So, but he cut Tin Fang Warble.
Why? It would have been amazing.
He didn't make the final draft. I know I kind of missed Tin Fang Warble myself. But anyway, okay. So, if we therefore go with the premise, which is the only one I can think of, that this is Maglor, that we're sort of cutting away from Fëanor's perspective and we're getting Maglor's perspective as he's standing there. And as you say, right, the 7 sons of Fëanor step forward to take the oath immediately with Fëanor, right?
Yep.
In front of the crowd. So I stood still in front of the crowd, excited faces, in fact, aflamed faces. Their faces may be excited, but their hearts, as we know, are aflamed.
That doesn't mean that their faces are aflamed.
Oh, that's true. That would look different, I suppose. Okay. So their faces are excited. What will be next? I still don't have a clue. Okay. So it's not that doesn't make sense, because that does make sense.
That does make sense.
What confuses me is the tone of this. And so, first of all, the tone of the words, right? Excited faces, what will be next? I still don't have a clue.
That seems like I mean, it's obviously not words, it's thoughts.
Right? Good. Yeah, exactly. He's not saying this. This is what the minstrel is thinking. I agree. Or maybe him telling the story later on. Right? If we're imagining that this is a future time when he is recalling this moment and telling the story. So I stood still in front of the crowd. The so suggests that, right? Mm-hmm. So I stood still in front of the crowd. Excited faces. What would be?
Also, it seems
you can imagine that in a story.
It's past tense.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Which,
but then, like, halfway through, it switches to present text.
Yes. It's in past tense and then future and then present. Actually, what will be next?
Well,
right?
it's
yeah.
Well, it's past, then present to future, whatever, and then this could be present, or it could be past tense. Like, if you're talking about something, like...
I still don't have a clue about the thing that happened in the past, you mean? Yeah. Yeah, so we could be commenting on it. Yeah.
Like, I don't have a clue why Fëanor did that.
See, now, if it is... Okay. If it's him singing in the, like, later on and remembering this, he would then be saying in the present tense... He's saying in the, I stood in front of the crowd and at that time was wondering what will be next, right? And then he's saying, and now to this day, I still don't have a clue.
Yeah. What
will be next. I still don't know what's coming. I still don't know what's going to happen. So that if that's true, then the implication, what this suggests to us is that how long-term the consequences of this moment are, right? The what will be next, the consequences of this choice, of this action, of the Noldor's exile and leaving Valinor still haven't worked out.
Maglor, like, on the ships while they're riding to Middle-earth?
Could be. Or we haven't gotten here yet because it's at the end. Mm-hmm. Can I give you a spoiler?
Yeah.
All right, spoiler alert.
Well,
Maglor,
me, anyway.
Maglor will survive. Okay. Maglor is one of the only ones to survive. He is the only of the sons of Fëanor to survive out of the first age.
Doesn't Mathos?
No, he dies at the very end.
Oh.
Maglor will survive. But what we're told about him is that he like goes about singing like sad songs of loss. Like he survives, but he's not all time. Let me see if I can find it. Let's see if I can find it. Got my Silmarillion here. Let's see. No, Calabath. I went too far.
Well, this could theoretically be just like incredibly out of order. Because like
Okay.
that song could be like after the end of the Silmarillion.
Right.
Like
Because
he's telling the story of him taking the oath, and then he's thinking like, what will be next? I don't have anything to do now.
Well, behind, like he left Fëanor after the death of his father, and it's like, well, I was wounded deeply by the death of my father, right? But I moved on. I left that behind. Right? In anger and pain, I left deep wounds behind. Right? But of course, as you're remembering very rightly, when we hear this, that's one of the ways that irony works, right? When somebody is talking about something, but when we hear it, we can hear his words referring to something else as well that he's not thinking of, right? We know that the far deeper words, the far deeper wounds that he's leaving behind are the wounds of the kinslaying, right? The wounds that he inflicted, not the wounds that he received. But he doesn't seem totally unaware of this, right? But I arrived, truth might be changed by victory. That's a fascinating line, isn't it? Truth might be changed, but like, dude, if it's the truth, it's the truth, right? Truth might be changed by victory. What does that line suggest to you? What do you think he means? What do you think he's thinking there? Does he think he did everything he did was right? I think he knows everything he did wasn't right, right? But what does he suggest? Truth might be changed by victory.
Yeah, like if he succeeds, then like it will be right.
Exactly. If I win, then everyone's going to say I did the right thing. Right? Even though I did some kind of horrible things along the way. Maybe he does remember that he inflicted deep wounds as well as receiving deep wounds. Right? But truth might be changed by victory. But I love the word might, right? Even he's not really sure that it will, right? He just kind of hopes it will.
I'm just confused by taking the long way dark realms I went through.
Yeah, I agree. It has been a long time. It has been a long journey as he's gone all the way up the coast of Fëanor and then sailed across. There's an irony there.
He took the short way.
He took the shortest
way.
Well,
he went straight across.
Well, no, because they travel up the coast a long way, and then they go across when the seas get shorter. Because like the coast of Middle Earth and the coast of Fëanor get closer to each other in the north. Until remember, there's that land bridge, there's that ice bridge, the Helcaraxa. But see, that's ironic too, because he hasn't taken the long way. Who takes the long way? Fingolfin and the rest of them that have to, the ones that he leaves behind, that have to go on foot, right? They take the long way, right? He took a shortcut, as you say. But to him, he feels like it's all he's focused on is how long and hard his journey has been. He's not thinking, just as I don't think he's thinking much, really, about the wounds he's given to others. He's thinking mostly about the wounds he's suffered himself. He's not thinking about the much longer way he's making other people go. He's just thinking about his own journey, right? So one of the themes is like his own self-absorption here in this stanza, right?
Yeah, but what's dark realms?
Okay, dark realms.
Like I can only think of that like literally, like literally
dark.
Dark Fëanor.
Well, yeah, because after the Nightfall, yeah. So I think that he is talking about like Fëanor after the darkening, right? And also the realms to the north, like so the northern part of the Fëanor continent is called Araman, and it's like deserted and stuff. So it's dark in the sense that there's nobody there and everything. But
yeah, they're the continents, and then in elf history class you learned that there used to be one big continent called Middle Valinor.
Just imagining the elf history classes where they're learning about like
Middle Valinor.
Continental drift.
Yeah.
Yeah, except the Valar did it. They forced the continental drift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just used a huge karate chop and landed a critical hit because instead of 1/16th chance, it's a 1/8 chance because karate chop has a high critical hit ratio.
Oh, okay, I see. There you go. Right. So they get a crit on a 19 or 20 instead of just a 20. Right. I hear you. Sorry. Wow. You made like 3 or 4 different system references in that sentence, but that's okay. All right. Notice what he repeats in the first verse.
I
arrived, right? That's what he keeps emphasizing. I arrived, but I arrived, right? Mm-hmm. I left deep wounds behind, but I arrived. As if that justifies everything, right? This is what he keeps emphasizing. I went through, it's been a long journey. I went through dark realms. I arrived, right? So I have succeeded. And I left deep wounds behind, and it's been hard, and I did really horrible things to lots of people, including my brother, but I arrived, right? Mm-hmm. Truth might be changed by victory. So he's seeing his arrival in Middle-earth as a victory itself and as the beginning of future victories, which will hopefully retroactively justify everything that he's done. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, play the next verse.
Play the next verse. And then we'll probably have to go.
Yeah.
Oh, that verse is so chilling.
So
I get chills listening to this verse.
Void deep within me. That means like the void of his, like.
Beyond the void is a really fascinating phrase in that line. The void is a thing in the Silmarillion. Well, that's kind of an ironic thing to say because the void is not a thing. But anyway, it's like where things are not.
The
right?
void is a not thing.
It's a not thing. The void is a not thing in the Silmarillion. The void is the emptiness outside of creation. So like there's the walls of Arda, and then like at the end, Morgoth is going to get pushed through the door into the void, into the outer darkness. Mm-hmm. So the void is like the outer darkness. So I don't understand exactly what he means by beyond the void.
It means like.
Because he's talking. Let's come back to beyond the void, because the rest of what he says there is really clear and really moving. I find deep within me. Let's start with deep within me, then we'll come back to beyond the void. Okay, deep within me, a swamp of filth exists. He's aware of the horrible things that he's done. Right, so he is thinking of his own soul as a swamp of filth. He's aware of how evil are the things that he's done. A lake it was of crystal beauty.
But Arda's spring went by.
But Arda's spring.
Isn't Arda's spring like the place where the elves awakened?
Well, yeah, it refers to that. Arda, of course, means the whole world. So, like, Fëanor and Middle-earth are both like parts of Arda.
So I think he thinks that like by going to Valinor, his soul like got corrupted.
Yeah, but Arda's spring went by. So well, hang on, I'll come back to that too. So a swamp of the central part, right? Deep within me, a swamp of filth exists. A lake it was of crystal beauty. And here we should be remembering the passage in the Silmarillion where the Valar are weeping not only for the darkening of Valinor, but for the marring of Fëanor, right? His fall. He has turned to evil and started to do evil things. And they're sad about that because he was the greatest of all the elves. He had the potential to be the greatest to do the most wonderful things in service of God, in service of Iluvatar, that anybody ever did. But he's been corrupted. He has chosen to do evil. And so he has, that seems to be what Fëanor himself in this verse is aware of, right? That his own soul was a lake of crystal beauty. The word crystal, of course, reminds me of the crystal casing of the Silmarils themselves, right? Mm-hmm. The crystal casing that he put around the light of the trees. So his own soul was like the Silmarils themselves, right? His own soul was a lake of crystal beauty, a whole lake of it, right? It was like from which the Silmarils are only drops that are taken from that crystal lake of beauty, mm-hmm. right? But now that whole lake of crystal beauty, from which possibly many things of wonder and beauty, like the Silmarils, could have been taken, has been turned into a swamp of filth, mm-hmm. and that's terrible. And it's even more terrible that he's aware of it, right? That he mm-hmm. acknowledges it, that he recognizes it. But Arda's spring went by. The spring going by makes it sound like it's just due to the passing of time, right?
No, I think it means like a literal spring.
Like a spring,
water.
like that water comes from. Though the went by makes it sound like the passing of time, like spring went by and then summer and then fall and then winter, right? And also the spring of Arda is a phrase that's used in the Silmarillion, referring to the season metaphorically, right? Just like spring is the beginning of new life, right? Mm-hmm. So the spring of Arda means the early youth of the world, like right after it was created. So the spring of Arda ends when Melkor destroys the lamps. We didn't read this part of the Silmarillion, but when the Valar first came to Arda and they were shaping
they had the lamps.
Yeah, I told you about it, right?
Yeah.
They made these two lamps, and then Melkor knocks them over, and it destroys the island where they were, and that's the end of the springtime of Arda.
That's why I said, and that's why, I think in Into the Storm it says twice I destroyed the light.
Yes, twice I destroyed the light, and twice I failed. Melkor will say, yes.
Oh yeah, that's in War of Wrath. Actually.
Yes, exactly, at the beginning. We're right, exactly. We talked about that. So he talks about twice he destroyed the light, meaning the lamps and the trees. Right. Therefore, but Arda's spring went by. The implication then is that Fëanor is comparing his own soul is like the lake of crystal beauty around the Isle of Elmoran, where the Valar dwelt in bliss at the very beginning before Melkor destroys the lamps. Mm. Right? But yet, by saying, but Arda's spring went by, it makes it sound like it's just a passing of a season, right? Like his own corruption of his soul is not a tragedy, but it's just like what happens as time goes by.
Yeah.
So even there, it's almost like him trying to rationalize it, like it was inevitable, mm-hmm. that his lake of crystal beauty soul would turn into a swamp of filth. Of course, it wasn't inevitable. That's never how it was meant to be. It's not how. Then that's not at all the natural progression of time. Now let's go back to Beyond the Void. Mm-hmm. Thinking about all this, then, what does it mean that he says, "Beyond the void, but deep within me, a swamp of filth exists"? I'm not sure I understand.
I think that means beyond the void. That means like before the earth was created.
Right. Possibly.
Like beyond the void, but deep within me.
Thinking about like his soul is an immortal soul, basically.
Like beyond the void. So like before the creation of earth, but deep within me, like. It was a lake of crystal beauty, like the beginning of the earth.
Right.
But then a swamp of filth exists, like Melkor destroyed the light.
So he's thinking about his soul as being created sort of outside of time, beyond the void, but it's deep within him, right? Because it's his soul. But you're right, he's sort of paralleling it with Arda as a whole, right? Which makes sense, because just as Arda is the creation of Iluvatar, so the souls of the children of Iluvatar are creations of Iluvatar as well, not shaped by the Valar. So the Beyond the Void then would refer to the immortality of his soul, to the fact that his soul existed in a sense outside of time, outside of Arda, which would then emphasize the tragedy of it becoming corrupted. Because who wants an immortal swamp of filth? That's just sad.
Yeah.
And gross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've heard the warning. That's like the that's the message from the Valar.
Yes, I've heard the warning.
Well,
right.
curse my name. That's the Teleri.
Yeah, well, curse my name is imperative, right? That's a command. He's like, well, curse my name. He's like, go ahead. Curse my name. I don't care if you curse my name, is what I'm hearing there. Right? I've heard the warning. Go ahead and curse my name. And here he seems...
I'm not listening to it.
Yeah, I don't care if you curse my name or not. I'll keep on laughing. No regret. No regret. And it is so chilling to me, the repetition of no regret. No regret. At the end of the stanza that starts with a swamp of filth exists. A lake it was of crystal beauty. Right? He knows how corrupted his soul has gotten, and yet he is still living in defiance, right? I'll keep on laughing. No regret. No regret. And you can see how he has lost touch of things.
Well,
right?
Either the last 3 lines could mean like as he is now, or it could be like he's like. He's not quite that way, but he's trying to make himself that way.
Right. That he's trying to convince himself that he doesn't have
Yeah.
no regret, and that's why he repeats it.
Yeah.
No regret. No regret. And even the tone of that, you think of the how much shouting he does in this song.
Yeah.
Right? Fëanor does a lot of shouting here. Right?
Yeah.
Think of like, but I arrived. Like, think about the tone of that,
I've
right?
had the warning. Well, curse my name.
And then
I'll
keep on laughing. No regret. It's almost like an inside voice, right? Like inside of him.
And then it goes loud again. Don't fear the eyes of the dark Lord.
That's directed outward again,
Yeah.
right? Instead of being an inside thing. So I agree. I think I'll keep on laughing, no regret is him trying to convince himself, right? And that's why it's so sad, right? Because he knows what he's doing is wrong. He knows that he is on a destructive path, a self-destructive path, and he's trying to convince himself that it's still okay, right? And I find this song such a fascinating sort of study of Fëanor's character and of Fëanor's psychology. Let's go ahead and listen to I see I've lost my place. Let me scrub ahead here to where are we? I want the chorus.
Chorus 1.
Okay.
Put at 107.
Yeah, actually, let's go back a little bit.
No regret, no regret. Don't feel the eyes of the dark. Long gone my time. All is gone, but I swear even in I will take part in your death fate.
Okay. I hate to interrupt the guitar solo, but all right. Don't fear the eyes of the Dark Lord. Okay, so don't fear the eyes of the Dark Lord is a command again, right? Imperative. Who's he talking to?
So yeah, all the chorus is first person.
Yeah, the whole thing is first person. I think we're going to be in the first person through the entire song, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yes.
Except for the Curse of Fëanor.
The Curse of Fëanor runs strong. Yes, exactly. There's one line which is in the third person, and it's by it's a background thing. But anyway, okay. Don't fear the eyes of the dark. So this is clearly Fëanor telling that to what? To the Noldor? To his people? To his sons? Morgoth, I cried. All hope is gone, but I swear revenge. Hear my oath. Okay, Morgoth, I cried. What's up with that?
Well, I guess it's kind of like, if it was a real book, it would be quotation marks,
Yeah.
comma, close quotation marks, comma, quotation marks, comma.
So wait, so are you saying it's part of the previous line?
Yeah,
Don't fear the eyes of the Dark Lord Morgoth, I cried.
No.
No. So
Morgoth, it's like
would be
he's
unapologetic.
saying Morgoth. All hope
Morgoth,
is
all hope is gone, but I swear
He's telling Morgoth,
Hear
all
my
hope
oath.
is gone,
Aha.
but I swear revenge.
Right. So he's telling Morgoth, hear my oath.
And all hope is gone, but I swear revenge.
Right. Okay. Okay. So don't fear the eyes of the Dark Lord, he says to the rest of the Noldor. Right. And then he turns to Morgoth, showing he's doing what he's saying. Right. He's like, watch.
Yeah.
I'm gonna not fear his eyes right now. I'm gonna call his name. Right, so they're afraid of the eyes of the Dark Lord, because if you name the Dark Lord, then his eyes might turn towards you, right? Mm-hmm. That's known. This is why in the Lord of the Rings, in Gondor, they don't call Sauron by his name. They call him the Dark Lord or the Dark One. And they don't say Mordor, and they don't say Sauron. That's where J.K. Rowling got the whole "he who must not be named" thing. But anyway, so Fëanor is right after he says, "Don't fear the eyes." That's why he says his name then, because he's saying, "Look, watch. I'll show you how not to fear the Dark Lord." And he calls out his name and speaks to him. Right, Morgoth, I cried. All hope is gone, but I swear revenge. Hear my oath. I will take part in your damned fate. Now, okay.
So like he's really defying him.
Yes.
Like he's like extremely defiant. Like
Extremely defiant.
Defiance levels are 12 out of 10.
Exactly. And he tells him to hear his oath, right? Mm-hmm. He's not ashamed of his oath. He wants Morgoth to hear it and to know that he has sworn it, that he has sworn revenge. Now, I have two more questions about the chorus. Yeah. I cried. I agree with you. It sounds like as you said, in a real book, we would call that a conversational tag. Like he said, she said, right? Something that just tags who's talking, right? But why would he say it? If the whole thing is in the first person, and even the conversational tag is in the first person, right? I cried. Don't fear the eyes of the Dark Lord. Morgoth, all hope is gone, but I swear revenge. Hear my oath. I will take part in your damned fate. That all makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. But why would he actually say, I cried? Is he definitely saying I cried? Hang on. Let's double check to make sure we're not hearing that wrong. It's pretty clear.
One more time.
Yeah, I can play it one more time.
Yeah, that's yeah.
It's pretty clear. Morgoth, I cried. I think that's right. Which means he's not actually saying this. He's talking about saying this.
Yeah.
The only time you would say, I cried, would be if you were telling the story about something that you said in the past. So he's saying all of this is addressed, not directly to Morgoth, but it's addressed to the Noldor. Don't fear the eyes of the Dark Lord, O fellow Noldor. After all, I cried, Morgoth, all hope is gone. Right? So he's telling the story about how in the past he said this.
Yeah.
That's what that...
So, like, the chorus is chronologically a few minutes later than the rest of the song.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Ben and Druid's Fire were just saying the same thing. That he's relating the story after the fact. Yeah, exactly. So what that means then is it's not just an act of defiance. It's him bragging about an act of defiance. which does change the flavor of it some, right? It's not a spontaneous defiance. It's, don't you remember when I did that totally defiant thing, right?
Yeah.
I was like super defiant. Wasn't I defiant? I was totally defiant, right? Let me tell you again about how defiant I was, right? I cried, Morgoth, all hope is gone, right? So that's interesting. It adds that level of boasting and also self-absorption, right? And so here we have him talking to his people, and he starts off with what sounds like a word of encouragement. Don't fear the eyes of the Dark Lord, right? Have courage, my fellow Noldor. And that sounds all like a good leader, right? And then after that, he's all like, but now let me talk about me, right? Which is kind of like the Fëanor we see, especially in that first verse. But the second thing, so that was the first thing I wanted to ask about the I cried. But the second thing I wanted to ask about is, I will take part in your damned fate. I find that line a really moving line as well. Not moving in the same way, but I will take part in your damned fate. He acknowledges that Morgoth's fate is to be damned, to be condemned, to be cast out. That's what that means, right? To be cast out into the void, into outer darkness. And he's saying, I will take part in that fate. I choose to follow you into damnation, into the void, into outer darkness, for the sake of revenge, right? If I can I am willing to be damned myself, to be cast out myself, if I can get revenge on you. I'm willing to take part in that, which again is sort of a commentary on what he's, again, we have the implication that he does kind of remember, although he's talking about himself, he does kind of remember that he gave deep wounds to other people, and that truth needs to be changed by victory.
Actually, the first...
And then the Swamp of Filth.
Until I looked at the lyrics for this song, I actually thought that line was, I will take part in your deathbed. Right.
Kind of like, right? Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Your damned fate is a little bit more grand, but it's similar, right? I'm following you on the path to destruction. But again, his open acknowledgement, and again, it's made almost even stronger by the fact that it's a quotation. He's repeating it again. And not thinking like, okay, I said this before. And in retrospect, that was a pretty dumb thing to say, right? Yeah. He's like reaffirming it by repeating it and bragging about it. Bragging about the fact that he said it, right? Yeah. Okay. Should we stop there?
No.
Okay. All right. Let's keep going then. Okay, I want to comment on the guitar solo. The pace and tempo of this song are really important. The guitar solos in this song, and of course the driving drum beat that you like so much.
And that's almost impossible.
That's a very, very difficult drum beat, and I think it's a huge part of the effect of this song.
Seriously, your hand would be legit invisible.
Yeah, Matthias is very impressed by the drummer of Blind. As you can tell, Matthias is a drummer and loves to do the drumming. His drumming on me is pure realism. He does this all the time. So anyway, I told him it was okay if he drummed on me like he normally would during the stream. But anyhow, I think that the driving guitar and the drum beat especially the pace of this song, the momentum of this song is really important. This also makes this song a very difficult one for me to play while driving without getting speeding tickets. But again, I think that's kind of the whole spirit of the thing, right? It's Fëanor being swept along, and this sort of the momentum of his career. He's not just following along Morgoth's path into the void. He is racing. Yes, and he is racing hard down that path. So I think that the tempo and the momentum of this song is a huge part of the effect. All right. I will always remember their cries. Clearly, this has to be the kinslaying.
Wait, why did it erase it? It was before we had done I will always remember their cries. It erased it.
Did it? Or did we do that somewhere else? I think we did it somewhere else. Yeah.
Oh. Well, it's the same thing
there. It is
there.
the same thing there, yeah. We forgot to put it up here. Right. Right, the repetition of I there is important. I will always remember their cries. Again, like Fëanor, right? So he is talking about himself. Even when he's remembering the Teleri. Ben, I agree. This is not...
I think he's thinking he's like the only one who will remember it. Like I and I alone will remember.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, certainly he's focused on his own experience, right? I will always remember their cries. And I think it has to be the Teleri and the kinslaying that he's talking about, right? So it's not like he's forgotten it. Again, the swamp of filth suggests that he hasn't forgotten it, right? I will always remember their cries like a shadow which covers the light. I will always remember the time, but it's past. I cannot turn back the time. Don't look back. There's still smoke near the shore, but I arrived. So he is in this...
Smoke near the shore means like when he burned the boat.
The burning of the ships, exactly. So we have his recollection of the two atrocities that he has done, right?
That's a word?
Atrocity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
It's an awesome word, isn't it?
Yeah.
An atrocity is like something truly horrible.
Did you know... yeah, it's like... the noun form of the word atrocious.
Exactly, yeah. Atrocious is the adjective
the
form.
Pokemon Gyarados is literally the species called the atrocious Pokemon.
Yeah, there's a whole species of Pokemon called atrocious Pokemon?
No. Each Pokemon has like a species name.
Okay.
And the name of one of them is the atrocious Pokemon.
So atrocious is like the genus of the... Like it's the genus to the species?
Yeah.
Wow. That is awesome. Oh, man. Pokemon is so cool. I would have loved Pokemon so much if it had existed when I was your age. Anyway, okay. Atrocity.
Yes, we're talking
Burning
about
of the ships. The two atrocities. Yes, because you'd never heard the noun form. Right? Okay, the two atrocities, which were the kinslaying and the abandonment, the betrayal of Fingolfin and the burning of the ships, right? Mm-hmm. That three atrocities. Right, but he's referring to all of them,
Wait,
right?
Why did I do this when I meant to do this? I did this when I meant to do this.
Right.
And now I just did this when I meant to do this.
I love the don't look back, right? So the memory of the cries of the Teleri is like a shadow which covers the light. And he'll always remember it. He repeats that twice, right? I will always remember, right? But it's past, I cannot turn back the time. You know what I hear there? But it's past, I cannot turn back the time. No regret, right? Like that decision that he's made to keep on laughing, right? Not to regret anything he's done, hoping that truth might be changed by victory. In other words, the thing that I find so moving in this song is that we see Fëanor heading towards destruction, right? We see him heading down an evil path, but he's aware of the fact that he's heading down an evil path. And he's
like, okay, fine, I don't care.
But he does care. He's trying to convince himself that he doesn't care. And that's what's so sad about it. I cannot turn back the time. Don't look back. I love the turn on don't look. Don't look back sounds like in time, right? Don't look back meaning don't remember, right? He's saying, I always remember, I always remember. Don't look back. It sounds like he's talking to himself, right? Mm-hmm. Don't look back. Like, stop remembering. Stop remembering. Don't look back in time. Except, don't look back. There's still smoke near the shore. When we get to the next line, it makes it a literal, like, don't look physically over your shoulder. Because right behind him are the burning ships. He's arrived, right? This is a song that he sings when he's arrived in Middle-earth. And before he attacks Morgoth. Mm-hmm. So he says, don't look back, which sounds like don't remember the kinslaying, but literally means don't turn around, and because you can still see the smoke rising from where I just burned the ships. So he don't look back at either one of his atrocities. But I arrived, and he just returns to that thing that he repeated twice in the first verse, as if that justifies everything, right? Yeah, lots of horrible things, but I arrived. Revenge be mine. And here's him focusing on that goal that he's headed towards, right? Forget the past. Try not to think about the horrible things that I've done. Try to ignore the smoke I can still see rising by the shore of the sea, and focus instead on the victory I have achieved in arriving, right? Taken the long way, long realms I went through, remember? But I arrived... Dark realms, yeah.
Not long realms.
Yeah, right. Long way, dark realms. But I arrived, revenge be mine. And again, the thing that he's focused on, the thing that he's
I think that like towards. This verse is interesting because he's kind of passive talking to himself, but then it's like what's it? I cannot turn back the time, don't look back. There's still smoke near the shore. So, like, he's angry at himself for, like, thinking back.
You're right. The tone of that is really important, and the tempo.
So, like, he's building up anger at himself, and then at the end, he's, like, focusing the anger on Morgoth.
Excellent. No, that's awesome, Matthias. You're so right. I will always remember. And then it shifts.
Like a shadow
but it's,
which covers the light.
I will always remember time, but it's past. I cannot turn back
the time. Don't look back.
Yes.
There's still smoke near the shore, but I arrive. Revenge be mine.
Yes, that focusing the anger, like feeling anger at himself and focusing against Morgoth. I think that's perfect, Matthias. I think that's absolutely right. And you're right about how important that shift right there in the middle of I cannot turn back the time. The shift in the tempo, the shift in the music. Yeah, that's super important.
Maybe since we're just on the tone of the page, we should stop now.
Yeah, we probably should.
Yeah, wait, play it until...
Actually, yeah.
Play it until the odd word.
I agree. This first. So we get to the chorus again, but notice how the chorus is flipped around, right? We just get a pause, revenge be mine, straight into I will take part in your damned fate, which was the end of the first chorus, right?
Yep. And don't fear the eyes of the Dark Lord is at the
end
of
the second chorus, exactly. So he's remembering again his defiance of Morgoth. I think this is correct. Hear my oath was clearly what he said the first time, but it's my oath does sound like what he says the second time. which is like he's insisting on it. Like, it's my oath, it's not your oath. Like, you didn't, which brings us back. Ooh, remember the voices in his head?
Yeah.
How the voice was, the oath was from the voices in his head?
Mm-hmm.
And so he's saying, no, it's my oath. This isn't something you did to me. This is something that I chose. Morgoth, it's my oath. So instead of saying, merely defying Morgoth, hear my oath, this time he's defending his oath. Like, Morgoth, it's my oath, man. Not yours, it's mine. So don't fear the eyes of the Dark Lord. So now he comes back to that, which he seems to be addressing to the Noldor, right? As the conclusion of this, but guess who I think he's really talking to? Himself. Yeah, himself. He's afraid, and he's trying to convince himself not to be afraid. So don't fear the eyes of the Dark Lord. Because
like
it's...
he's trying to remind himself of his strength.
Yes.
To try to make himself stronger.
Yeah, exactly.
And
to strengthen himself with his anger, just like you were saying.
So after that chorus, there is a UFW, an unidentified unflying word.
Okay, so let's go back a little bit, because there's this word that comes into the middle, and we don't know what it is. All the lyric sheets we've seen online just skip it, and they don't even acknowledge that it happens. But it's clearly a word.
So I had a theory that word is wrong.
Wrong.
Maybe he's like questioning if it is his oath.
Or is it like Melkor saying that he's wrong to not fear his eyes?
Yeah. It sounds like a question.
Yeah, it does sound like a question. Wrong? I don't know. It could be wrong. It could not be wrong.
Also, it literally could be wrong.
It literally could be wrong, or figurative. Right? It's wrong one way or the other, right? Yep. It's either wrong or that's wrong.
Yeah, it's either wrong or wrong.
So I don't know what you guys think about this. If anybody else has any other ideas on how it fits in, I mean, if it were wrong, then I could understand that as being an interjection by Morgoth.
So do you mean if it were wrong or
if it were wrong? No, okay, yes. Let us use incorrect.
Yes,
if it correctly were wrong, I can understand that as being Morgoth interjecting, but I can't. And it doesn't sound like Fëanor's voice. Like, it sounds like it's said by somebody else, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But I have no idea. I have no other theories about what that word could be.
It's like, so Morgoth is questioning wrong, like.
Let's do it again. I don't know. I can't think of anything else it could be. It does kind of sound like an R at the beginning.
Yeah.
It sounds like it could be raw, but that doesn't make any sense at all. So wrong, I can deal with wrong. Unless it's just sort of like it's just strange. And now we enter into a really important guitar solo. But we'll come back and start there next time. So we have to go because it's dinner time. But we will return for another episode. When you least expect us, we will return for another episode of our Blind Guardian Nightfall and Middle-earth discussion. In the meantime...
Well, maybe it could be like Morgoth is asking, like... You decide, is it wrong to fear the eyes of the Dark Lord? Like, if you fear the eyes, then you won't. Like, if you fear my eyes, then you, like, won't be like me. You won't be as strong as me. You won't be.
I don't know. But let's see. We'll see what people think. Maybe we'll get some suggestions here that will help, like the Blood on Me helped with Into the Storm. So if you have any suggestions about this or further comments, feel free to submit those. You could submit them like Tungle submitted his excellent suggestion on the Exploring the Lord of the Rings Questions for Narnian page, or you could tweet them to me. I'll get them there as well. Any suggestions you have for what that word could be right after the second course there in the Curse of Fëanor, and we'll start with that next time, especially if anybody comes up with any better theories. So thanks everybody for joining us. We've got to go. We look forward to coming back again and finishing the Curse of Fëanor, and then moving on. Maybe we can get to Blood Tears, which is another really cool song.
Yep.
The Mythros song.
So
anyway, we look forward to seeing you again at a time and place which are, well, okay, the place is known, but the time is unknown, so we'll see. So if you want to make sure that you don't miss one of these episodes, we encourage you to subscribe to our Twitch channel at twitch.tv/SignumU, and you will receive a notification when we do our unexpected and unplanned streams together. Thanks very much, everybody, for joining us, and we will see you guys later. Bye!
bye.